What we're though doing is we're not fixing anything on the land. We're typically taking a piece of land, getting under contract for a low price and just selling it with a higher price. So it's really more related to house wholesaling. It's land wholesaling.
Wholesaling. Got
And we're
it.
selling land with seller financing. So just right from the get-go, what we're about to talk about is basically that you can do everything you can do with houses just with land, except for fixing it, because there isn't much to fix on a piece of land. But with actually a lot of benefits.
Are you looking to achieve massive success in your life without dealing with costly investment nightmares? If yes, then this is the podcast for you. Here, we provide engineers and busy professionals all the secrets and strategies to create multiple streams of income, build generational wealth, and live a meaningful life by design. Here's your host, Ted Patel.
Hey everyone, this is Ted Patel, and welcome to this week's edition of Decoding Cashflow podcast. I'm sure you all would have heard a lot about house flipping, but today we are going to get an insight on land flipping strategies from our very well-known guest, Jack Bosch. He's a founder of Land Profit Generator Method and Land Profit Coaching Program and has completed over 5,000 land flips over the time. And he has also converted the flipping income into generational wealth through other real estate investments. In addition to this, he's a host of Jack Bosch Show, a real estate investing podcast. So, Zach, welcome to Decoding Cashflow. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much for having me, Ted. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So this is a very interesting topic, as I mentioned earlier. Like everyone knows what the house flipping is, right? You buy a piece of property, you do an add-on, upgrade the property, sell it at the higher price. Now, land flipping for many of them might be very new concept. So before we dive deep into it, if you can give our listeners a little bit background about yourself, how did you get started? What did you do before you got into real estate, and what's your main focus as of now?
Yeah. I want to say one thing that you said it correct. We refer to land flipping as land flipping, but as I discovered over the years, it's actually the wrong term that we have used, and we continue to use it. But because flipping in real estate usually means fix and flipping. What we're though doing is we're not fixing anything on the land. We're typically taking a piece of land, getting under contract for a low price and just selling it with a higher price. So it's really more related to house wholesaling. It's land wholesaling. And we're selling land with seller financing. So just right from the get-go, what we're about to talk about is basically that you can do everything you can do with houses just with land, except for fixing it, because there isn't much to fix on a piece of land. But with actually a lot of benefits, like, for example, you can structure deals in a way that you get cash flow without even putting any money out of pocket. But we'll probably talk about that later. So to my person, so I'm an immigrant from Germany, not born and raised in Germany, not here. Came to the United States 27 years ago. Finished my college degree. Met this young lady here who is now my wife of 23 years. And we decided, she's an immigrant herself from Central America, and we decided to stay here. So long story short is through a process of trial and error, while we had jobs, while we were getting the green card in the United States, the permanent residency, through that process, we tried all kinds of things because we very quickly realized that the job world wasn't what we wanted to do forever. We started we found real estate. And through trial and error, we tried the house wholesaling. We tried house fix and flipping. We tried tax liens and tried tax deeds. And through all this kind of process of trying all kinds of stuff, one day we stumbled into a piece of land that the owner had gotten through, he'd just gotten divorced. He didn't want the property anymore, and he was willing to give it to us for $400 when it was worth like $10,000 to $15,000. And we literally drove up to the property a few hours from here, and the neighbor came across the street and said, like, what are you doing? And we were like, well, we're looking to sell this property. And he's like, great, I always wanted to buy this property. And he offered us $4,000 right there on the spot. So we turned $400 into $4,000. That's a 10x return. Not a huge profit, only $3,600. but still a 10x return. And we were over the moon happy. We're like, oh my God, that was what I made in my job a month. And then we said, like, well, if we can do it once, we can do it again. And we started focusing more and more and more on land. And soon enough, we forgot about houses. And since then, we have done over 5,000 land deals. And shortly after the green card arrived, we quit our jobs, went full-time into this, and things just started exploding very quickly.
All right. And as you said, right, you buy the land, put it under contract. Like, you don't buy the land, but you put it under contract. You find the buyer, you sell the contract to the buyer, and the exchange take place, right? And these are only the residential lands or commercial lands, industrial. What are the different kind of lands you deal with?
Yeah, you either pass the contract on or you do close on it and buy it, and then you turn around and sell it the same day, but still using the buyer's money. So that's called the double close. So either way, you don't really use your own money usually to do those deals. So with that said, what kind of properties we're focusing on? We over time, we learned that there is really three kinds of properties that work the best. The first kind of property is infill lots. So you think about a city, houses, $400,000 or $500,000 houses, 35 houses on a street, one empty lot. Well, that empty lot is ready to be built on. All utilities are to the property: water, sewer, electric, and so on. It's ready for a builder to pick it up, but most builders are not really good at marketing. Most builders are they're buying from the open market, they're buying from the MLS, they're buying from brokers coming to them telling like, hey, we got these 5 lots. So if there's an off-market property just owned by somebody, builders often don't even know how to go about that. So what happens, what we do is we do off-market marketing. So we don't typically buy from the MLS, even though you can, particularly depending on the exit strategy. And we take a property like that's worth perhaps $100,000, put it on a contract for $60,000 and sell it to the builder for $90,000 and make a quick $30,000 and so on. The second kind of property we focus on is properties in the path of growth, so in the outskirts of larger cities. So think about a bigger city that's growing. Where the last development ends, that's where the path of growth starts. And you can be very close to that path of growth, in which case the properties are quite expensive, but you can again sell them very quickly to a developer, or you can go out a little bit more, up to like half an hour, let's say, drive outside of that, and you're still in the path of growth, but more in the path of growth, not from an appreciation and the city engulfing that with development, but still in like an area where a lot of people would love to live half an hour from the city, but have 5 acres. Like have a little space, have space for like a barn and some goats or some chickens and basically a little mini farm in a way, but still be within half an hour from the city. And particularly in today's world where a lot of people still work remotely, that works really well because people can work 3 or 4 days a week from there, then only drive the extra half an hour 1 or 2 times a week to go to an office. So that has been, particularly that segment has exploded, particularly since COVID. And the third kind of property we focus on is larger acreage, usually between about 45 minutes and 2-3 hours driving distance away from bigger cities. And now we're talking 40 acres, 80 acres, 100 acres. And that's really desirable. I mean, there's farmland in there, amongst other things. There's land with timber in there. There's land that you can sell the timber. But typically, it's just recreational land that the outdoors lovers want to, like the guys that like the dirt bikes and the quads and the ATVs and the racers and then hiking and biking and hunting and so on. They love that kind of land. And again, thanks to like what happened, well, in this case, even though it was a bad time, but in this case, thanks to COVID, that kind of segment has exploded because a lot of people realize that if put comes to shove, when we have another pandemic or so, they want a place away from everything that they can go have fun, and that's a perfect place for it. Also, with the advent of technology, like for example, Starlink, the satellite dish from Starlink. You can have broadband internet in places where up 5 years ago, you couldn't even have cell phone reception. And and so with the advent, with the acceleration of solar efficiencies and so on, you can even have you can have solar there. So you actually, what used to be like a weekend getaway place, if somebody had 80 acres, they would go there Friday afternoon, come back Sunday. Now they can actually stay a full week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks because they have internet, they have electricity with solar, they perhaps have a camper or an RV there, and they can actually stay there. And again, since COVID, these markets have exploded in demand for us, which has been very good for our business.
All right. So you mentioned three different type of lands, right? One is the infill lots, which are like, in which people like me, we are like spec home builders, we do luxury single family home.
Perfect.
As well as small multifamily properties. So we are always in lookout of these kind of lots, buy a lot or buy a knockdown house, which we can, take it apart and build a brand new spec home on the top of it. So yeah, and normally you're right. It's a broker which helps us get these kind of properties, or we look at the MLS. And if someone like who is a land wholesaler, all right, who can get in touch with the property owners which are not in the market, the properties which are not in the market, get in touch with the owners, negotiate the deals, and get back to us. We are always looking for those kind of deals, because over here in New Jersey, especially in the areas that we are main focused on, there is very less land available. And any infill lots, if it comes on the MLS, people will start bidding, and the price, I would say builders will start bidding and prices will go up. And in this case, like wholesaling, of course, if someone can get a good deal,
and that's what we specialize on. We specialize in finding those lots, finding those those owners or the sellers, and negotiating good deals, and then pass them on. And our preferred holding time is 5 minutes. So we don't want to. We put them on a contract, we market them, we find a buyer, we usually do a double closing. And we make money in the middle, and everyone is happy.
Right. Do you use any specific filter criteria to find these lands?
Yes, we do have certainly criteria. So we love to buy from people that own properties for many, many years, because people buy properties for all kinds of reasons. So like particularly infill lots, they were thinking about building something there down the road, and well, now it's 30 years later and they still haven't built anything on there. At this point, perhaps the grandchildren are born, perhaps one of the spouses passed away, or perhaps they have health reasons why they decided to stay where they are, where they're close to their doctors and close to their family and so on. And often these sellers are out of state owners. So they live in, I don't know, they live in Michigan and they have the lot in Jersey, or they live in Jersey and have a lot in Texas. And again, you can do this nationwide. It doesn't really matter where you live. And we have people live in Manhattan and do deals in Florida and do deals in Alaska and do deals and you name it. We even have people living in Europe and doing deals in the United States without even often flying over, because it's 100%. You can do this 100% virtual because it's only land. You don't have to inspect it for repairs, and there's no kitchens to inspect and any of these kind of things. So typically we like people that own properties for a long time. We like out-of-state owners. We also like heirs, even though we do about a third of our deals with heirs, but they're just a little bit harder to spot, because sometimes an heir is somebody who got the property deeded to them 3 weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. So they look like it's a new purchase, but it's not. It's just an inheritance. And in some cases, you can actually look at what kind of deeds they got. When you look at the data, you can see, well, somebody bought something with a warranty deed or grant deed or whatever it's called in the state, and somebody got it through a probate judgment. So if you see that the way of ownership transfer was a judgment, then it's probably an heir.
Or maybe the property purchase price was nominal, like $1 or something. That might be one of the things.
That too, in the states where that is being published, which is most of the states, but some states are so-called non-disclosure states. But in probably think like 45 of the 50 states are they disclose that if the purchase price was like $100 or $10 or nominal, then you're like, okay, something that was a family transfer usually. So that's a good candidate for that, and so on. So yeah, so we like those kind of those kind of deals. That's kind of the lowest hanging fruit. But surprisingly, you also get deals from people that live 2 miles over and are in their 40s, and they just need money. So we actually in our software have integrated something with a third-party service that whatever leads you take, you can upload it to the third-party service. And that third-party service runs it through like an additional 28 different socioeconomic filters, and even things like, did their credit score just drop? Did they just lose their job? Did they all kinds of different things? I don't even know what it is, and it assigns it a score. So the higher the score, the higher the likelihood that they need money and that they're motivated to sell. So you can even improve your criteria with AI these days, with like through a third party service.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Like, it gives you a background of the person, like what this current situation of the person is, and based on that, you can always pitch your deal.
Well, it doesn't tell us what their background is. It just gives it a number. So it's called a Betty score to that company, and they call their AI Betty. So Betty is analyzing. Obviously, it's an AI system, is analyzing it, and then comes back with a score of 400. Well, a score of 400 is an extremely good lead. A score of 32 is a not so good lead. So somewhere around 200, the leads go from not so good to really good leads, and so it just gives you a score. It doesn't give you the details. But still, I mean, that if you send to those and they call you back, that you can ask some questions. So how is your situation? What's going on in your life? And often sellers like to talk and they like to tell you their life story. And all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I just lost my house, and I just this or just, I don't know, I just lost my job and I really, really need some money, and so on. And now the key to know though is I want to make sure that we don't take advantage of people in those situations. Mm-hmm. We're going to make them a fair offer, but it's an offer that still allows us to make some profit.
Yeah, everyone is simply
happy. Yeah, because here's the thing. If they go onto the market and sell their piece of land and they want full market value for it, it's probably going to take them a year to sell that property, because that's reality. Land sold at full market value often sits on the market for up to a year.
Plus the commission, right? Plus the real estate commission.
Yeah, they have to pay commission and so on and so forth. But more than anything, if they need money soon, that's not going to help them. They sit on their property. So what they can do is they could put it on the market and sell it at half price. But guess what? That's what we're offering them in the first place. So with us, they have a quick, easy way to get some significant money. But at the same time, if they give it to us at half price, we're going to go, because plus they don't know how to market it. Most realtors also don't know how to market land. Most realtors are trained for houses. They know how to do a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, split floor plan home with a pool, and they know how to market that, how to get pictures taken, how to stage the house, how to light the house, how to declutter the house, how to do a broker's open, how to put it in the right places, and then that house sells. But with land, you can't stage it, you can't declutter it, you can't really do much of these things. So land is being sold a completely different way. Land is being sold, and perhaps we can talk about that a little later, but land is being sold by casting a vision of what you can do with the land down the road.
Yeah, the best use of the property.
The best use of the property. You can say if somebody's like a half an hour outside of the property, and let's say the property allows for mobile homes to put up there. This is the perfect piece of land for a future retiree. So instead of putting it on the market for $50,000 and just waiting a year for it to sell, I can sell that property probably for $40,000 in 3 weeks by basically putting it by saying like, listen, this property is half an hour from the city. It's on this XYZ road. It has a building pad on it. It's perfectly located to bring your mobile home. It's the perfect retirement property. You're only 3 miles away from this little town with a church or grocery store. and medical office. You're only 5 miles away from this lake. You're only minutes you're back into town. So if you're looking for a low-cost retirement, your problem. So what I just did, I just basically then I add pictures that show where the grocery store is to the property, how fast they get into town. They don't have enough money to retire because they don't have enough money saved up. So they want to perhaps move a little bit outside of town. They're going to look at that as like, I can put a mobile home up there. Great, because that's all I can afford. It has all utilities. Great. It's in half an hour, I'm back into town. I have groceries close by. I have a medical doctor close by. I have a lake and recreations close by. It's my perfect lot. And they buy it right there. But the owner doesn't know that. He's going to put his property at any price out there with a crappy listing, and it's not going to sell. So over time, so we're actually doing them a great favor by giving them still half of market value. And then we can turn around and with our knowledge on how to properly list it, we can list it at 75, 80% of market value and sell it within a matter of weeks, a few weeks, very quickly, and make good money with it. And everyone is helped in the process.
Mm-hmm. And for the properties which are just outskirts of the city, right? A suburban area, half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
For those properties, do you first of all check with the town, or do you check the core town codes if the entitlements, anything is in place, the water sewer lines are in place before you approach the owner?
So no. So the way we do that is we have it's all this entire system that we now also teach. We have a coaching program and things like that, but this entire program is designed for efficiency. Okay. So with efficiency, I mean the following. We typically use direct mail to contact owners. So we get a list of properties, and our first approach is usually using like the assessed value and what that means in relation to market value. And what we find is that if a property doesn't have utilities and doesn't have water sewer and doesn't have anything to it, it's automatically assessed much lower than a property 2 streets over that has all of this. Mm-hmm. So just by looking at the assessed value, we can already, a lot of that is built in. So what we do first is we first send a letter of interest, basically saying like, hey, we're interested in potentially buying your property. Could you call us? So when they call us, we talk to them, or you can also outsource that to a call center. And we have a list of questions we ask them to. And in that question, well, part of the question is there utilities? Is there paved road access? Is there electricity to the property, et cetera, et cetera? And so half of the people know nothing about it. They just say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But at least they call us back. And the other half of the people, they do know the details. So therefore, what we then do is we do a quick check with the county. And nowadays, all this information is on the website usually. So we basically can go on the county website, pull up, let's say 15 people called us. It takes like 5 minutes of property. We just pull up the records. We see what is there. Is this property? What utilities does it have? We look at the aerial picture. We see if it's flat. We see if it's wooded. We see if it's tree. We see what the road access is. We see all those kind of things. We look at the list of improvements on it. And based on that, we know like, ooh, this is a highly improved property. And then the other thing we do is we pull up these properties like on Zillow and basically pull up what are they worth, because we need to establish their estimated market value. And then with that, we then have a formula, and we have actually in our software, we have like an offer sheet that basically we put in, here's the market value, and then it tells us what to offer. It gives us a range. They're like, well, you can offer whatever you want, but we suggest you offer in this range. And then it depends on what the seller said. If the seller says like, yeah, I don't want this property anymore. If you want it, you can have it. There's no reason to offer $50,000 for a property. You can probably get it for $5,000. And if somebody says like, yeah, no, I was planning to build there, but I think our plans have changed. If you give me a reasonable offer, well, if the property's worth $80,000, we might offer them $40,000 or $45,000 on it, and so on. So, and then we make our offer based on that. So we only do research on the properties where they called us back on. And even there, we don't go into every nitty gritty last detail. So like we don't check at this point. We don't check is there environmental issues on the property? We don't check if you can, I don't know what the building setbacks are. Like what's the minimum, maximum building size that you can put, a house size that you can put on the property. We don't check those things. because we can always, the way our contract is structured, so we just figure out what is the value and get some of the basics, and then we make an offer. So if we get that offer accepted, then we dive deep, because our offer, for example, has the benefit of, in our written offer, there's a line item in there that says that the buyer, which in this case is us, or if you do that, you can back out of the contract anytime for any reason. So we can actually cancel the contract. And the seller signed that because they're often are just like, again, they've inherited it, they've owned it for 40 years. They don't care. They just want to get rid of their properties. They doesn't mind. They don't care if you end up, well, they're sad if you end up backing out, but usually they're like, oh, well, okay, so I'll just keep it for another few years. It's not the end of the world. Because actually, contrary to what I said earlier, some people need money, but the majority of them just have it in the family. And if anything, they're sick and tired of paying property taxes. They just don't want to keep paying property taxes, but it's not a hardship for them to hold that property another few years. So therefore, they're like, yeah, I'm good. I can hold it or I can sell it. If you want to take it off my hand. So if that line item that says there that the buyer can cancel contract anytime for any reason, as in 99% of the cases, does not cause them to raise any issues over the contract. What that means for us, though, is that if now that we have it under contract, now we do a deep dive and we do an environmental check. We check with the EPA website. We check flood zones. We check what you can build there, how many units you can build there, how is it zoned, is there any building restrictions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if we come up with anything that kills the deal, we just simply send them an email saying like, sorry, we have to back out and we're done. So it's really zero risk for us.
Okay, right. And in our conversation, you mentioned you send out letters to the homeowners or to the landowners, I would say in this case. How do you, like, what are the other means of marketing in addition to the letters that you use?
So the letters are probably 75% of what we do, because contrary to house flipping, in the land space, there's much less competition. Not competition free, of course. We have been, after all, teaching this for a bunch of years, but there's a bunch of people that share this, and there's probably a few thousand people in the United States that do active land flipping. But I read an estimate that somebody said that 3 million people have been trained on house wholesaling. Mm-hmm. So now we look at that. There's 3,000 people doing land flipping and 3 million that are dabbling in the house wholesaling area. So it means that basically for every 500 to 1,000 house flippers, there's one land flipper. So there's much less competition, meaning their people receive much less letters. And as a result, their response rates are like 5 to 10x higher in the land space than they are on the house space. So direct mail for land still works. Okay. With that said, we also use cold calling. Particularly, we like to use services for cold calling. I don't want to build my own cold calling team and micromanage them. And I don't want to cold call, for God's sake, I don't want to cold call myself ever. And you can also do texting, although, of course, with the texting restrictions that exist and all the different rules and laws, you have to be very, very careful with texting. And so even there, what we do is we hire services to text for us and services that cold call for us. They follow all the rules. They eliminate and suppress all the people that could cause trouble. And with that said, it works. You can get really good leads with those two extra methods.
And like we talked about how you get your funnel filled up. We talked about where you source the deal from. Now, who are your buyers in addition to the builders, right? For infill, who are your main other buyers?
Yeah. So the infill lots are typically either the builders or what we call financial buyers. So financial buyers are particularly interesting in like gentrifying or up and coming areas. These are just people with money that buy the land and do nothing with it. They just wait for everyone else around it to have built up the area and made it real nice. And then they sell their lot for 10 times what they bought it from us. And as an investment, they're just basically land bankers in a way, small land banking. But individuals, usually just people, somebody makes a lot of money or good amount of money, takes some money off the stock market, puts it in there. They also are buyers when you're in the path of growth, but if you're directly beyond the last development. because this is obviously hot development area, or like a couple of miles outside of the last development. That's also where the financial buyers are buying. That's also where builders and developers are buying, because it's obviously ready for development. There's a subdivision down the road already, and it's ready to be built. When you go further out, our builders, our buyers that are building in the path of growth, but like a half an hour outside of town, those guys are typically either the retiree. There's an unfortunate statistic in the United States, but it's unfortunately true, that says that 70% of the people over the age of 50 don't have enough money saved up to survive either a medical emergency, a broken down car, or something like that. So unfortunately, though, Social Security is only $1,600 in the US per person. The average Social Security is $1,600. Well, rent in a bigger city is also $1,600. So you either have the choice, if you're that, like the people that are in their 50s right now and have not much saved, perhaps they have $20,000, $30,000 saved or so, they have a choice between working forever and never retiring, which we see that more and more, that people just can never retire, or they retire in a way that they buy a piece of land half an hour outside of town, put a mobile home on there, and perhaps pay that land off in installment sales, so with seller financing, and we offer that. So we find a $40,000 piece of land, a couple of acres, half an hour outside of town, that we perhaps get for $10,000, and we can mark it up for $40,000 and sell it to somebody like that with a $10,000 down payment. So what we have to pay the seller and what we get from the buyer is the same amount. So we have no money in the deal. And now they owe us $30,000, and they pay that off in monthly payment of $400 or $500 for the next 10 years. Now in 10 years, when they retire, they have a free and clear land. They put a mobile home on there, and now they have a dignified retirement. And then the second kind of buyer that likes that kind of land, or likes to be like half an hour outside of town, is what we used to call the COVID buyer, but really it's the remote worker. So it's the people that work at Facebook and at Google and at wherever you want to work, at the city, and at like nurse practitioners that do Zoom consultations, and you name it. Like, still to this day, 40% of all Americans work from home. That's 50 million people that work from home. And that means that they can live where they want to live and work where they want to live, where they want to work. So, and not everyone wants to live in the city. So there's a lot of people that would love to have 2 to 5 acres, half an hour outside of town, that they can work there 3-4 days a week, and then perhaps commute into town once a week, I think, as I said earlier. And then the third kind of property, which is the recreational, the 40 acres and 80 acres and things like that, those are what I call mini farms, and they appeal to 3 kind of buyers. The first one is the RV person, the outdoors lover, the toy lover, the dirt bike, quad thing, those kind of people that love all this stuff, the hiking, biking, hunting kind of lover. The second one is a funny kind of group, but hey, who am I to judge? It's what I call the doomdays preppers. Like, there is a huge community out there, millions of people in the United States, that basically think World War III is going to break out. And I mean, again, who am I to judge? Look at Ukraine, look at Israel, look at all what's going on there and how it's spreading. And might as well turn into World War III at some point of time. We don't know. And they love to have their own 20, 40, 80 acre parcel, put a bunker in there, and basically like be self-sufficient. They even want it to be away from the utilities. They want to put solar on there. They want to put a well into place, and want to be completely off the grid. Again, who am I to judge? But usually these are good income earning Americans that have money to pay these properties. And the third kind of buyer from that is there's an equally huge movement of people that are sick and tired of the stresses of modern society. And they want to go back to the land. Homesteading, it's called. And the homestead people, there's a group on Facebook with 1.4 million members. They're all looking to live on the land and off the land. So, and today with solar panels and with Starlink, they can live on the land, have chickens, have a cow, have a horse, and have a mini farm going on, and still connect to internet and be a developer at Facebook. It's like,
That's true.
it's crazy. We're living in just a completely different world. And again, there's millions of those out there. And again, they usually have good earning jobs, and they have saved a lot of money. They pay cash for their land, and they love these kind of properties.
Mhm. Right. So now talking about the different use of land, we already talked about, right? As you know, this show is about, the name of the show is Decoding Cashflow, right?
Yeah.
So how can a person generate a cash flow through any of these land deals? What are the different strategies that you would suggest?
So the number one strategy we use, and my wife and I have built this up to over $71,000 a month in cash flow, pure profit cash flow coming into our life per month, so $840-something thousand a year, is by selling the properties with seller financing, becoming the bank. Okay. And again, the way that the reason why that works is because particularly the properties below, let's say like $60,000-$70,000, of which there's a lot of them, you can often get for like 20-30 cents on the dollar. Like you can get a $30,000 property for $6,000 all day long. Happens all the time. So if you get a $30,000 property for $6,000, you can put it on the market for full market value, $30,000, and then just request a 20% down payment. So offer it without carryback. So that you basically say, like, I understand, like you basically tell the market, I understand you want to buy this property. And if you don't have $30,000, simply give me $6,000 as a down payment and then pay me monthly payments of $100 for the next 10 years and the property is yours. So what that effectively means is that if you have to give the seller $6,000 and the buyer gives you $6,000, you can do a cashless transaction. You can basically do it such that the buyer pays the $6,000 in, and the title company uses the $6,000 to pay to the seller, and we're ignoring title insurance costs. But that, let's say they make up another $1,000, so perhaps the seller gives you $6,000 plus closing costs, and the seller agrees to absorb some of the closing costs. So again, it costs you nothing. So but essentially you get the money you need to pay to the seller. And you just bought and sold the property without using any money, but the buyer still owes you $24,000, which they now, in signing a loan agreement, agrees to pay to you with $400 a month payments over the next, and perhaps 10% or 12% interest over the next 10 to 15 years. So you just created a $300 to $400 monthly cash flow that comes in for the next 10 to 15 years. And the nice part of it is not rent, where you have to do maintenance. It's pure cash flow. You're the bank. The buyer is the owner. If something happens on the property, they take care of it. If there's fence around the property and the fence breaks, they fix the fence. If a tree falls over and they have to have it removed, they pay for that. You simply just receive $300 to $400 or $500, whatever you want to structure it with. Like you simply receive cash flow every single month. And if the worst case happened and the buyer stops making payments, let's just think about that. Let's say you paid $6,000 for the property and you got a $6,000 down payment. So you have no money in the deal. Now they start making $400 a month payments. First month, you receive $400, pure profit. Second month, you receive $400 profit payment, pure profit. So after 2 years, let's say that person now has paid 1 year is $4,800, 2 years is $9,600. So the person has paid you $9,600, and let's say they stop paying now. For some reason, they pass away, they change their mind, they disappear from the face of the earth, they lose their jobs, they can't make the payments anymore. What you do now is very simple. You foreclose on the property. It might cost you $500 to foreclose in most states. The most expensive one is California, but there it costs you more like $1,200 to $1,500. But in most states, you can foreclose in a matter of let's say 3 months, and it costs you, let's say, $500. So you let 3 months, you have no income. It costs you $500 to foreclose, but you're still ahead of the game. You're in the profit zone by $9,600 minus the foreclosure cost. Let's say now you're at $9,000 ahead of the game. And now you sell it again. And guess what? You get another $6,000 down payment, which now is pure profit. And you sell it again, and you start the process again. And really, financially speaking, somebody foreclosing on somebody stopping to pay is really the best thing that could happen, because now you get to take the property back and sell it again. But that's not our business model. but it does occasionally happen. But if they give you $5,000-$6,000 down, their foreclosure rate is like 3%. So it barely ever happens.
Yeah, this is like the example you gave, right? It's about 20-30 cents on a dollar, like the margin. Do you often come across these kind of deals?
Yes, particularly in the lower price segment. So again, you like at some point of time, even the last seller realizes that there's value in the property that they're giving to you. So you usually don't find $1 million property that they give you for $100,000. That just doesn't happen, of course, right? I don't want to bring up wrong expectations here. $1 million property, you can probably put on a contract for $600,000 and then sell it for $750,000 cash and make $150,000 cash profit. Yeah. But a $30,000 property, that's kind of like a sweet spot, 20 to 30,000. It's like you find those quite frequently for 20-25 cents on the dollar.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. And those are
like even my daughter. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and those kind of properties, what are the specific areas that people can find in those kind of properties?
They're typically those kind of properties that are like within half an hour to an hour outside of a bigger city. And they are often like subdivisions that were built but never fully populated. So there's like, let's say there's like 1,000 lots and 300 houses, but there's still 700 lots available. Meaning utilities are there, there's houses there, there's a clubhouse there, there's a community there. So, but they're growing again because again we're an aging society. And people are moving. There's an aging society, and there's more and more people that looking for like lower kind of cost living. And these are usually, I mean, if you can buy a lot for $30,000 and pay it off, and then you can put either a mobile home on there, or you can even build a small 1,500 square foot retirement home on there. You're in it for $250,000, and that's way below American standard of like cost of houses, and you can actually retire there. There's a lot of lots like that in Florida. Lots, and really every state has a whole bunch of them.
Yep. So, Jack, loving this conversation, but would want to be mindful of your time also, and go to the final round of questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So what is the one book that you'll recommend to our listeners which had the most impact on your life or on your business?
Probably a million people have mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I'm not going to mention that one. I'm going to mention a book. Pardon?
You already did.
I know, but that's like everyone says the same book. Yeah, I'm going to pick a different book that I read a couple of years ago, and that I think every entrepreneur must read this book. And it's probably one of my favorite business books in the last 10 years. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And it's basically the story, and has nothing to do with real estate, but yet it has everything to do with everything in business. And it's basically a story of how Will, with his partner, whose name I forgot, took over a restaurant in New York and made it into the #1 restaurant in the world. Still exists. It's 11 Madison Avenue, the restaurant. It's a three-star Michelin restaurant now, and has been for many years. But it won the award of best restaurant in the world. Like it's incredible. And the lessons he learned, it's easy to read. My then 16-year-old, now 17-year-old daughter read it, or audiobooked it, listened to it as an audiobook, and she absolutely loved it. She's like, oh my God, that's one of the best books I ever read and listened to. And that's a 16-year-old that usually doesn't read those books, even though she's interested in business. And she has done a land deal already, so made $35,000. It's just a fantastic book because you can replace the word customer or like client or like guest in the restaurant with customer, and it applies to any kind of business in the world.
All right. Yeah, I haven't read that book. Maybe I'll just put that also on my list to do.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your main source of information to learn and grow?
Main source of information to learn and grow is I'm a big fan of coaching programs. So I belong to a coaching program or masterminds, coaching program and masterminds. I belong to a coaching program / mastermind with a bunch of futurists right now. They're talking about longevity and AI and quantum computing and things like that. I have no understanding of whatsoever. I have no clue what's it. I'm a business major and a simple guy. But I'm part of that because I understand that the future, that in life, the worst thing you can do is close your eyes to what's coming. And if you look at history, I love biographies. That's another thing. I love biographies of really successful people. And what it shows me is that the people that like what hurts you in business is not what you don't know. Well, that hurts you too. Is what you don't even know you don't know is what hurts you. So it's a level beyond that. So there's stuff out there. If you think about the Uber coming into the market, like I heard about the story in New York, and stop me if I'm talking too much, but I heard about the story in New York where this guy had finally worked, immigrant to the US, built up a taxi company, bought one taxi, then two taxis. Now he had at some point of time, he finally had 20 taxis running for him. Finally, they're all making money. It's in Manhattan, New York City, wonderful. He finally retired on his boat, and then all of a sudden Uber comes. And the next thing you know, he's out of business.
And you know, those medallions, they call it medallions, the license to drive in New York City. At one point of time, it used to cost like $1 million per license.
Yeah, exactly. And so now I don't know what their cost now, but now you take an Uber everywhere, and the taxis are fighting for it and fighting for survival. So what happened here is not that they didn't know what was coming. They didn't even know that there's such a thing that possibly could hurt them. So I'm paying attention to those kind of things. So I'm learning through masterminds. I'm learning from those people that read all these books in the world and all the experts of experts, and they give me an update on it that I can understand, because you put one of these quantum mechanics and quantum engineering books in front of me, I can't even go to the first page because I won't understand anything. But I can have somebody give me once a month a presentation on a group presentation on what this really means. And I can use that. And I was like, well, if that's what it means, then I need to think in my company to position ourselves over here so that I'm not being rolled over by all these changes. And that's really allows me to have like almost a crystal ball into the future.
Yeah. And the technology changes very fast, right? So you got to keep up your pace with technology.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So the another question, what is the best business or investment advice you'd like to give to our listeners?
The best business advice. Can I approach it from a point of view of a beginning investor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So most people, I think, make the mistake that they get into something that is too complicated too early. So like we do multifamily investing. We own like 800 apartment units. We own 258 units on like 25 buildings. This is a complex operation to run this thing. Just getting it to qualify, just analyzing the numbers properly is a nightmare. And so a lot of people spend a year just studying that, and then they find out, oh, that's too complicated for me, and they just wasted a year. Now, they didn't waste a year because they learned a lot, but they haven't taken any action. So my thing is like, look for a business that is simple enough that you can get your arms around it and you can get it started, but at the same time that it can be scaled enough that you can actually make some serious money with it. And that's the business. And also think about, would you enjoy it, of course? Because if you start something just for the money, you won't, but you hate it, you're never going to do it. You're never going to pull through with it. So if you have something that you're like, you know what, that sounds interesting, let me look closer into it. And then you see like, well, it's not that complicated, I can do it. And then you see like, wow, I can still make a lot of money with this. Then you got the whole holy grail and you go full in with that. And then scale as fast as you can. Get those first deals done as fast as possible. And then once you're done it and you have proof of concept, like go full in and build that thing up, because your life in 12 to 18 months from now can be completely different if you do the right angle. But what I see most people is they pick something that they're either not super passionate about or that is way too complicated and it's going to take them years and years and years to be successful. And if you don't have an entrepreneurial background, and if you don't know that in life, so the moment you're an entrepreneur, life is going to hit you in the face, and life is going to bring you hurdles and things like that. So you need something where you have success experiences. So it keeps you going, it gives you to success. And that's what happened with us when we started with our land deal. That first deal, we made only $3,600, but we were like over the moon excited because it was proof of concept. 2 weeks later, the next deal, we never even saw that property. We made $10,000. We're like, oh my God, this works. And then we're like, okay, now we have proof of fund. We have money in the bank account. We're not rich, but it works. Let's do that again and again and again. And we could handle it
while the strategies. And
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And now we're doing splitting. We're taking lots and we're splitting it into multiple lots. We're taking lots and we're selling them. We're selling notes. We're structuring deals complicated. We're buying multifamily. But now it's 20 years later. Yeah. So we have grown so much, and so will the people that actually heed that advice.
So once you have an experience, you can always expand in different, areas.
Yeah.
So first thing is getting an experience in the area that you want to be in, what the thing that you like, and then you can just build upon it.
Exactly.
All right, Zach. How can Decoding Cashflow listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way, first of all, I have a podcast too, which very modestly is called the Jack Bosch Show. So I purpose didn't call it land flipping with Jack because I'm talking about other things there too. I had a celebrity chef, Iron Chef America winner, talk about how he took his business through COVID and how he survived during COVID and business strategies. And I had I don't know, people from all walks of life in there, but of course there's a focus on real estate and there's a focus also on land on the podcast, but I want to have the liberty of talking about all kinds of different subjects. So you can go to any one of the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and listen to the Jack Bosch Show. You can also look at my YouTube channel, which is Jack Bosch. And there's also, if you look at it, there's a series of 7 videos where I explain in much more detail how our land flipping works. And also there's a link that you can go to, which is called Land Profit Fun. Fun, like having fun, F-U-N. So Land Profit Fund, and if you go there, you can download a 30-day blueprint, which is a very detailed PDF that lays out the steps of what is of how our land flipping strategy works.
Awesome, Zach. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and so much information was shared on the show. I'm sure our listeners will digest those information and take some action moving forward.
Wonderful. Right. Looking forward to seeing you all on our site and helping you hopefully to success. Thank you very much for having me, Ted.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jack.
Thanks for listening to Decoding Cashflow, brought to you by Aster Capital. If you found value in this episode, then please share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And make sure to act on what you've learned. If you want Ted Patel to personally help you reach your goals, then feel free to set up a one-on-one call with him. Also, visit us at astercapital.com for more free resources. Content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. As always, please consult your own advisor before making any investment decisions or setting a course of action. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Decoding Cashflow, and we'll catch you in the next episode.